A new CNN report alleges an employee at Donald Trump's residence, Mar-A-Lago, drained a pool on the property last fall, flooding the room where computer servers containing surveillance video logs were stored. This happened just a few months after FBI agents raided the property in search of classified documents in the former president's possession. The timing and nature of the incident has some speculating it was done intentionally. That includes federal prosecutors who've asked at least one witness about the flood.
Meanwhile, former President Trump furiously tore into the Department of Justice, which is considering whether to indict him for mishandling of classified documents. He took to his Truth Social account yesterday, posting, quote, "How can the DOJ possibly charge me, who did nothing wrong, when no other presidents were charged, when Joe Biden won't be charged for anything, including the fact that he had 1,850 boxes, much of it classified, and some dating back to his Senate days when even Democrat senators are shocked." On Monday, Trump's legal team was seen meeting with prosecutors at the DOJ. Investigators are said to be meeting with a grand jury next week, or just coming up next, not next week necessarily.
I love that every aspect of these kind of Trump document stories feels like I'm in some kind of 90s Leslie Nielsen film, like with the hijinks and the...
I was getting, this is giving a sort of Sopranos mob, like you hire a pool attendant who's like a mafia goon. He's like, I was refilling the pool. We wet some computers. They don't work no more.
you can do that accent, Robby. That's your lane.
Thank you.
No, like, look, who knows if this is true? We live in such an absurd world that I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past anybody. Now, to the bigger, more important question, which is, is Donald Trump right that he is being signaled out here when so many people, including the president, including the former vice president, Mike Pence, also had these document retention issues?
Right.
And,
yes.
and the pushback is that Donald Trump actively did obstruct evidence insofar as that he declined to turn over the documents in his possession. And now there is this recording of him that we reported on last week where he expresses knowledge of having documents that he knows should not be in his possession, undermining the idea that he thought that he had just unclassified them through executive fiat.
Right. The deep state's plans to attack Iran should be a closely guarded state secret, not something accessible to people, I guess, is
but I mean, look,
theory here.
I totally agree that the substance of the non-disclosure was a much bigger story.
Still nobody's talking about it, just us.
And I get you, Robby. I think you're right about that. However, it is also the case that there is a stronger case against him for actively fulfilling the elements of obstruction of justice because he knew he wasn't supposed to have these documents and didn't give them over. We don't know. Like, if we later discover that Joe Biden also intentionally kept documents and then failed to disclose them and tried to block returning them when the request was made, then he should also be brought up on these same charges. Yeah. Absolutely, I agree.
You're right. Trump clearly knew he had documents, and they asked for him back, and he was like, no. And Joe Biden didn't know he had the documents, but he did, and then politely gave them back. That's the difference, and that's why this is moving forward. I still think this is not a significant... Yes, you can technically go after him because the rules are complicated with respect to the documents and everything is routinely classified, and he probably made a grocery list once that he held on to, and probably that's classified, and he was supposed to hand that over to the Library of Congress or whoever, and they said, give me that grocery list, and he said, no. And now we're where we are. I just don't... Again, I think sometimes we have to judge these things not in terms of whether it's technically a violation of the law, because everything is technically a violation of the law. Our criminal code is vast, and you can police can follow you while you're driving for 20 minutes and will always have an excuse to pull you over 100%. If they want. Something that affects a lot of underprivileged people, a lot of people of color, et cetera.
100%.
This is not about getting Trump off the hook. He is careless, and he brings this on himself many times. But the bigger issue to me here is that it's not a significant, to me, the more significant aspect of the thing I would like to change is the routine secrecy that our federal government, that the permanent bureaucracy uses to shield themselves from criticism, that there are policy decisions being made behind closed doors that the American people ought to have a say in, they ought to have more knowledge in, because the American people do not agree with the foreign policy of the elites and of the permanent government. Yeah. And they want a vastly... American people in both political parties want a vastly different role for America on the world stage when we're talking about defense and security and all that sorts of things going on. So I don't want this. This feels like a little bit of a sideshow and a little bit of a distraction.
If this is the thing that ends up precluding Donald Trump from running for president or being elected and things like that, it will be experienced as a relatively trivial complaint that was weaponized to undermine the democratic process. And I don't know if that's the record that Democrats want under their belt. Now, it might be worth noting what the specific charges here, potential sentence might be for Donald Trump if this were to be pursued. The potential charge is unauthorized retention of national security documents. It is a section of the Espionage Act. Prosecutors would have to show that Mr. Trump knew he was still in possession of the documents after leaving the White House and failed to comply when the government asked him to return them and then subpoenaed them. The theoretical penalty is up to 10 years per such document. Up to. It doesn't have to be, but up to. The prosecutors would also have to show that the documents related to the national defense and that they were closely held and that their disclosure could harm the United States or aid a foreign adversary. And this is why Donald Trump is in more trouble than the others.
Look, again, Trump is bad at a lot of this stuff in terms of like operating in a more squeaky clean way, and I think it would be smart for Republican primary voters to keep this in mind as they pick the next Republican candidate, because even if it's unfair and even if it's biased and even if it's weaponized, don't you want someone who's like less likely to walk into this trap?
So not Mike Pence.
Because he had documents too.
He did have documents too, although
but he
complied.
Gave them back, so he's not, but I don't know, that's what Trump's supporters like about him, that he just says, no, I'm not going to give him back. I don't think that's necessarily very constructive. Like, let's fight the state in really in constructive ways, principled battles. It's never really principled battles with Trump. It's like, well, this personally inconvenienced and annoyed me, and I'm mad about it.
Can I drain the pool to cover it?
And I demand you all back me up.
Yeah.
And he forces everyone on the right to defend him in this sort of cult of personality, and they all go along with it. And I don't think that's been healthy for the trajectory of the Republican Party. So I can think all of that while at the same time thinking that like this is not particular seriousness. And there's something almost darkly funny to me about how serious the talking heads on all the other cable channels are treating this. With like it's just not that big a deal. I don't know what they all have documents. They all have them because everything is classified.
The Republican Party has this kind of war on trans rainbow stuff going on right now, and Donald Trump is standing strong as the most campy man in all of the United States of America. It's a great battle. We're going to continue to watch it.
Guess we can't go swimming at Mar-A-Lago.
Oh well.
Oh well.
More Rising after this.